So this is a prime example of why you have to, once you've done your research, you still have to go down and you have to do your test panning. Now I was looking at the Lech, Lech. It drains into the Danube, and it goes through this glacial valley. This is where this was all tilled up during the Second Ice Age. Everything was pushed down. And if you go look at that river, when you close in on it, there, let's get that out of the way. When you close in on it, I was right down in this area. One side is nature protected, the other side is the main river. This is a canal. It's a man-made canal that was built. So all of the topographical and everything here shows all these streams feeding into this and this feeding into the Donau, or the Danube, which means this should contain gold. Now when we zoom into this, and go here, you see all what looks like sandbars. This in fact is not sandbars. There is sand here, but it's a very, very light white sand, and there's not even any real black sands in it. The stuff is so light it's been tossed up, and it's on top of that glacial till. Now I ran the river, I tested it from here all the way down to here. Okay. Dang it. There. All the way down to here. That's about 1 kilometer. And I did test digs on each of the curves and curvatures. I did it inside the erosion along the banking, all the different places that the gold would be. I did find a few flakes. The dilemma is that is not sand. This is all the glacial till. It's conglomerates, metamorphic rock, silica rock, and so on that the glaciers moved down, and this stuff is about as big as your fist, and it goes as small as a thumbnail up to as big as your fist or larger. I was having to use my crowbar to pull some out to get underneath just to see if I could find anything under there. And the problem with this is all this stuff is piled up and it's so porous that this area through here where I was, let's see, was it there? Yeah. This area through here is about 2 meters deep, and the water was clear enough I could see bedrock on the bottom. That means all this stuff here is 2 meters deep. For me to get to the black sand and the gold that's under this, I would have to dig down almost 2 meters, and the gravel and everything is worse than sand because they're round. It just keeps rolling back in. And this area through here is swept clean due to the current. All of this that you see through here is gravel, and then the darker areas that's underneath there is about 2 meters deep in bedrock. So all of the research, the history and so on, the mountain range, the groove, everything says that there is gold there, and I did find a little gold. The dilemma is I would have to dig so deep, and it would be so much work for what little bit I would get out of it without using industrial equipment. It's just not worth it. Let's have a look at it on site to give you a better idea. So, I have my classifier, my bucket, my shovel, my rucksack. Let's head down to the river and have a look at it. And it looks good on the map, but we won't know for sure until we get down there. So here we are on the Lech. This is a prime example of what looks good but is not. And the way you can tell this is we see the gravel beds. We've got sandbanks back over there. We've got gravel till, all of that. The trouble with it is, as the river washes this, the gold's going to sink. And if you look right here, I don't know if you can see it or not. Let me get down. See how the water is running that way, out into the river. This gravel is so porous that if there's gold here, it's 1 or 2 meters deep. And as you try to dig this gravel out, it's simply going to keep piling in on itself. If there was gold here, like you see the sand over there, see the sand in there. The trouble is, that sand's been washed and washed. Any gold has sifted its way down and is at least a meter under all this gravel. And then if you try digging this gravel out, it's simply going to just roll back in on itself. Much worse than even sand, because sand you can work your way around and make a bigger and bigger hole. This right here, there's just no real way to work it. So you can tell from how this is going from the dry land, what looks like dry land, but you see the river is running underneath it. And back out. So even though this looked good on the map, when you get down to it and you get on site, it's just unworkable. I mean, I've got areas out there that's almost 2 meters deep before we start hitting anything similar to bedrock. So it's just not workable. And you have the dunes that go all the way back. And it's all the same. I've walked all the way from that red thing back up in the back there to all the way back down to that bank back down there. And it's all the same. I've checked along the bank rim, the undercut from the river. I've checked the curves. I've checked the leeways. I've checked the offlows. I've checked the sinkholes. Back over that way, under that mound, is a big dip where the gold should be piling up during high water. But again, I dug down almost a half a meter and it just kept closing in on itself. So we're going to call this area of the Lech, L-E-C-H, as just unusable. This side here is open. Everything on that side where all the stones are, the bedrock that would possibly hold the gold, I can't dig over there because 1, the water runs deep. 2, that's stationary. If I dig in it, I'm causing excessive erosion, unnatural erosion, and that side of the bank is a nature protected zone. So on to the next spot. This here is a good example of what we call a conglomerate. All of the stuff is packed together. This is probably from the Ice Age, maybe even older. And you can tell all this stuff has been turned. And so this was all pushed down by glaciers and now is being eroded and worked out. But even though all the geological data says this would be a good place, because of how loose and porous this is and how deep this stuff goes, it just makes it unworkable. It's really disheartening. You can see here, this is a prime example. This is an old riverside. You can tell where the roots were on this, where the roots grew in over time. This is another conglomerate. If I break it open, you can see it's full of quartz. It's a prime area. I just can't get down to the gold. It's too deep. So on to the next spot.